Everyone wants recurring, predictable revenue, and the pool of reliable income has been strong enough to turn nearly everything into a subscription program. Toothpaste in glass bottles, meal kits, toys for dogs, and of course, coffee beans, coffee pods, or frozen coffee pods. There are many kinds of coffee subscriptions. But subscription models for coffee shops, like actually visiting a shop in person, haven't really caught on. There's no winning framework for coffee shop subscriptions like there is for subscribing to a roaster online. But the dream of recurring revenue for the in-person cafe experience is alive and well among operators and leaders. That's why I wanted to talk with Patrick and Krystal Burns. For nearly a decade, they've run Palace Coffee in Amarillo, Texas, and built out a membership program that goes beyond discounted drinks. They've refined their program a lot over the years, and it's fascinating to learn how they've adjusted pricing, perks, marketing, and operations to keep the program going and profitable. I'm Gary Oden from Fresh Cup, and welcome to the Coffee Think Tank. The most innovative coffee businesses I know give themselves the space and energy to nurture a culture of innovation. Unfortunately, space and energy are things that most coffee business owners are short on. That's why I'm excited to introduce you to this season's sponsor, SumUp. SumUp is a point-of-sale company with a powerful suite of tools designed to help coffee businesses master the day-to-day and optimize customer retention so that you can have the flexibility and confidence to explore new opportunities. A full digital POS system, mobile card readers, loyalty and marketing automation, and even self-serve kiosks. Whether you're running a small cafe or a growing roastery, SumUp's tools give you the breathing room to explore innovation in your business. Visit sumup.com to learn more. Hey, Krystal and Patrick, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
We are excited, actually. We've had to move it a few times, and we're glad to finally be able to make it. So thanks for making time for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a longtime fan of Palace Coffee. I grew up 2 hours away. And, when I first became aware of coffee, Palace was certainly the best coffee shop in the region. And, anywhere from Dallas to Albuquerque, if you're driving, you want to go through Canyon or Amarillo to get Palace. So, I adored you, and I made every opportunity I could to drive up from Lubbock to get to try your coffee. And y'all did a few things that always stuck out to me in terms of hooks to inspire loyalty. And, I remember a few things like Harry Potter night and, Harry Potter themed drinks. It was, like such an event. But the thing that really stuck out to me most was your annual membership program. And it just seems so different and very well executed. So, I wanted to get you on the podcast to talk to you about how you've pulled it off successfully for so many years, what it's taken to refine the program over time to make sure it works continuously for you. And I'd love to hear some of the back end operations of what it's like to pull it off, the kinds of tools, how you train your team, things like that. So if y'all are ready, let's go ahead and get into some questions.
Yep, I think that's great.
I'm ready.
So we're all about community. That's been the big forefront of why we got into coffee in general. And so we just always have been trying to find different ways to tie a broader community into a smaller community to make them feel valued and special. We definitely want to provide that for everybody, but sometimes people need that closer relationship. And so this was just a different way that we can do that. How the club started actually wasn't an original idea from us. As in everything in coffee, we steal from each other all the time. A lot of times we can actually, tip our hats and pay homage to the people that we borrowed it from. And this one, we actually got permission from the person who came up with the concept. We were at Coffee Fest. We were a part of teaching
Successful coffee house seminar.
Yep, with the Delano's crew. When we won that award the year before, the America's Best Coffee Hats through Coffee Fest. They had a spot open up on their team to come and help teach. And so we said, yeah, we'd love to be part of it. So we did. And we're a part of that group with a guy named Joe out of Durango, Colorado. They own Durango Joe's, hence the name Durango Joe's from Joe. Mm-hmm. And he was telling us one day about this mug club that he started and told us about the program and how it all worked. And so it really piqued our interest because first of all, one thing he mentioned was that he does his mug club at the end of every year, which was a good way for them to build up a cash flow going into the January, February, March of the next year. And so we're like, well, yeah, we're like everyone else. We kind of dip after December. And so that would be great if we could build up a little bit of cash flow for a cushion to get us going into the next year. And so that kind of helped start the idea. And then we just kind of fleshed it out and made it our own.
Well, and Patrick actually wanted to apply something like that to Palace, but kept saying, I think it's going to be too cumbersome. Like it's such a big program to kind of take on, and how do we make it happen? And he kind of wanted to table it, which this does not happen very often, where he has an idea and wants to table it. Usually it's he has an idea and I'm like, yeah, we can't do that. We call him the dreamer and me the dream crusher. But with this idea, I was like, but because of that idea of like it helping our cash flow and, creating customer loyalty, as you said, I really wanted to try to take my hand at it logistically to see if there was a way that we could introduce it maybe in a small way. I really kind of was like, let me see if I can make this work. And so I kind of took it and did a little research based off of what Joe was doing, and then kind of took it and looked at some things on our end of how we can make that happen. And some of the challenges with anything like that is, do you make it a join at any time? If you make it a join at any time, you're going to have to combat with like, well, when did this person join versus when did this person join? So we kind of worked through like all of the potential issues that we saw could be a logistical challenge for us. And we try to combat those and figure out what would work and how could we structure it in a way in which it could be, consistently something that people joined into and bought into. And I think the first year we did it, we had, I don't know, like 100 and something.
Yeah, I think we were around 160 people signed up. We started selling in November. So basically the last 2 months of the year is when we put it out there for people to sign up. And then it would start January 1st. And it started with not just being a member of the club, you got a discount. So you got a 25% off your drink or your purchase for your specific things all the time. On Mondays, we did 50% off their drink. If you're a member, you can come in and get that. And then we also would have events throughout the year, typically 3 or 4 events that we would try to get people together to try to build that community up a little bit more. And then we also had a tumbler that we did that was branded for the club year, which we've had club members that have been a part of us from day one. So I think this is our 7th year potentially. And so they have a different tumbler every single year along the way. And then that year, I think I also made a really cool metal card, like the Amex Black. It wasn't that though, but it was a cool metal card that we made for people to feel a little bit more special that they could share at the register. So our baristas knew who our club members were that way. And so that year was great. The membership, didn't quite get to the level that we wanted it to. We kind of wanted to top out around 200, but we got 160 people as a part of it. A big question I got from club members, even at our very first event, which I think was like 3 or 4 months in, they were like, so you're giving me a discount now. I only paid this much money for it. I've already recouped all the money I would have, spent had I not had the savings. So how are you making money in for this? Like, how is this good for you? And I was at an event and I just said, well, look around for one thing. There's people here that are connected now that weren't connected before, that I'm more connected with because they're club members. They're more connected with our staff now. Our staff knows their names more because they're club members. And so there's a deeper tie that way. So when you just look at it from that perspective, regardless of financially, we're winning. Like, our goal is to create community for people. And that's what we did. We helped create a second level of community for our customer base and for our baristas. And then 2 asked this question. I was like, hey, so last year, how often did you come in a week? And it was like, once or twice, a week. I'm like, cool. Now that you're a club member, how often are you coming in? They're like, at least 3 or 4 times. I'm like, okay, cool. Now, when you come in, do you just come in by yourself or do you come in with other people? He's like, no, I hold most of my meetings at Palace now. Okay, but you didn't last year, right? He's like, well, no. I'm like, so you have someone else coming with you that's getting a drink. You're getting your discount on your drink and purchase, and you're coming in more often. So then I just stopped and looked at him. I was like, so do you want to tell me again how you don't think that it's good for us too? Like, it works on every level. So that kind of helped people understand really what we were trying to do.
That's really interesting. So you've used language like mug club, and I think people kind of understand what that is. You buy a branded mug, you bring it in and you get a discount, if you have your drink in that cup. But what you're describing is something quite different. So, can you explain, how did you go from sort of a mug club concept to something that was a lot more dynamic and interactive with the events and the other elements? How did that evolve into something that was more unique?
I really do think it goes back to I mean, 13 and a half years ago when we started Palace, what the core vision of Palace was, which was community, which was building spaces for people to belong. And if we're going to do that, we wanted to serve a really great product that goes along with it. And we also know that Sam's Club has been doing a club style discount. Costco has a club style discount that you pay a yearly fee for. And so it was basically just looking out in the broader industry, not just the coffee industry specifically, but into other industries that have other things going on that are more membership based, and then going, I wonder if we could grab that from here and then plug it in over here. And if that can be a part of this whole story that we're trying to tell, because the plan was year over year to keep building that membership up until it got to a point to where we didn't feel like it could be sustainable based on losing personal connection. Because I mean, if we got to 1,000 members, man, that might be great for your cash flow, but can we really know 1,000 people that way? To where they feel valued and we also can give that value back to them. And so that's where we're like, okay, let's try to grow it as much as we can. And then once we hit that limit, then let's scale back. Let's change our pricing structure to make it make sense to where we can kind of keep it at a healthy level. And that healthy level really got to be about 200 to 250 really is what we felt confident in taking care of.
I think too, like the events part is something that we did add. That's not something that Joe was doing with his Mutt Club. And for us, that concept was the community base that we have so, deeply rooted ourselves in. We always loved community events. I mean, you mentioned Harry Potter night. That was something that we loved doing for our community, and it was super fun. My background is actually in event planning, so anytime I can plan an event, I'm all for it. But we also wanted to use those events not only as like something to make the club member feel more special. And like those were club exclusive events that they could bring a +1 to. When they would bring their +1, they're like, these events are awesome. So then inevitably, a lot of times their +1s would join the club next year. And so it kind of helped us promote the club and the exclusivity of it in a weird way too, by doing those events. And we were able to do events in which a lot of our events were also educational. So we would do a coffee and dessert pairing. And so, we're getting to showcase our coffee and our product in a different, to basically our Palace fans, because they're our club members. And then they're going out in the community and talking about it, which then makes it feel more exclusive, which then makes you want, how it is. If you see something that's out there that seems exclusive, you want in on it. And so we were able to generate some kind of mystery behind the club by doing those events and by having people talking in our community. We're a fairly small community. And so people talk to one another and we have a lot of the same circles. And so we were able to gain more club members each year, basically because of them attending different things or hearing different things about the club.
Yeah, when you see that card, I mean, you cannot help but crave the card. It just looks so legit. This is so interesting. I mean, a lot of the conversation around subscriptions in the coffee world is very transactional. People say things like, we want the recurring revenue, we want the predictability of that revenue. And, but it feels very transactional. And what you're describing is so community forward that, you're giving people really legitimate reasons to be like deeply engaged and loyal. And you're also turning them into evangelists for the brand and to outsiders. So that's really interesting, that for some of these members, you might have been operating at a loss, if they come in a lot, and they recoup their costs, and then, they're getting discounts that you wouldn't have given them otherwise. Can you talk to me a little bit more about the unit economics and, how did you land on $150 for that first year? How did you sort of add that up? It seems risky to promise benefits for a full year in advance and have to commit to fulfilling those. If you're not totally certain how many times people are going to come in and what those actual costs for you will be. So can you talk a little bit about those economics?
I mean, it's the law of averages is what we basically looked at. And so we knew what our hard costs were by provide a $25 gift card, a tumbler, and then that cool metal card. That was a set cost. And so then we knew, okay, then we have say $120, $115 left over that we're going to be able to put in our back pocket that will carry us through. So doing a 25% discount on their drink and their pastry, that's going to equate to them coming in 2 times a week. And so we basically started doing hard math on it to figuring out where was their break even point, and then where are we really losing? Because even giving a 25% discount, we're still above margin. I mean, we're still making more than what we would have made had they not come in at all. And so then we had to start playing that game out of like, okay, they're going to be coming in 4 times versus coming in 2 times, are going to be saving more, but they're also spending more with us. And so what are we comfortable with? And doing that. And so that's kind of what we did. We did a lot of spreadsheets, which is her favorite thing in the world to do.
It's weird, I know, but I do love them.
Yeah.
I think too, we were really banking on the fact that they would come in more often and that they would bring somebody that would pay full price for a drink when they would come in. So while we knew that that wasn't always going to be the case, we knew that there was going to be enough of that. And if you looked at our discounts over the year, it's like, holy hell, you gave so many discounts over the year to club members, but and it's hard to know like what revenue we also generated from those discounts because it's hard to kind of pin that down. But we feel pretty confident that there were people that were coming in mostly because we saw it. You know, we'd see a club member come in and they'd have a meeting with somebody. And so we became the meeting place for that person too, because they got to come and experience who we are and what we do and how we take care of people. We kind of feel that way. Like if we can get them in our door and we can make them feel valued and feel a part of our community, like we think we can hook them because our team is so exceptionally great at hospitality and taking care of people and making people feel that way. We hear it all the time. And it really is, you know, Patrick's vision and his brainchild, but our baristas and our shift leads and our managers are, you know, in that every day and they're doing it. They bought into the vision. And so we knew if we can get people in our door, they're going to connect with our baristas because our baristas are very people, you know, friendly. And so they're going to connect with them and then they're going to want to keep coming back. And so it was just, for us, I think in that first year especially, it was like, let's just try this out, see if we can get more, you know, people in the door and then retain them. It was definitely an experiment and a risk that knew was like, we don't know if this is going to be good or bad. And then we just kind of kept going. And we have found some things that, you know, some things that worked in the beginning really, really great, you know, fizzled out over time and it wasn't as successful as we rotated different members. We have some members that have been members from day one and they will forever and always be a Palace Club member. Because they're just bought in. And then there's others that have dropped off for whatever reason. Sometimes they'll skip a year and then they'll come back the next year. So, you know, we've learned over time and as our club has evolved, certain things have kind of, you know, dissipated. Really after COVID, we noticed that the events weren't as well attended. I think everybody got used to not doing things for a little bit and then it was hard to get it back into it. And we never really regained that traction with events. And so that was one of the things with this year. We're not necessarily doing club exclusive events. We're still going to do community events because that's just who we are. And we love doing that kind of stuff. But now we might open it up to everybody and then maybe talk about our club program while we have a captive audience or something like that. So yeah, we've evolved over time. But I think initially our thought was like, let's just try it. Let's just, you know, see if the maths and see if we can get people in the doors and retain them as customers.
Was there something that you looked for to be the signal of whether this was successful or not for you?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question.
Honestly, back then, no, because we were just like trying things. I like to say we have fumbled our way through owning this business because we didn't know what we didn't know. And we just kind of were like, let's just try this. He's really more of a risk taker than I am, but I have such trust and faith in his vision that I've become more of a risk taker, like the more that we've evolved and the more that we've run this business together. And so I think a lot in the beginning, I was just like, okay, yeah, if you think this is going to work, like we'll figure it out. I think in the last couple of years, we've really been diving into getting more business coaching and mostly because we've had the ability to get our head above the water a little bit in terms of just being entrepreneurs and business owners in general and owner operators. Like we're very involved in the day to day. And so I would say if you ask me that question today, I could be like, this is our goal because I have a process now. Like I want to make sure we need to have this many members to be able to break even or to make this money back or whatever it may be. Back then, we really didn't have, we were like, in our mind, if we have 200 club members, we're successful. And there wasn't really any, not that there wasn't any thought behind it, but it was more of like, that was success to us. If we had quite a few people engaging, that was successful to us. Whereas now, you know, as it's kind of evolved and grown, we have a number that we're like, we really need to have, this many members for it to make sense with the discounts that we're giving out.
Yeah. I would say that's the rub now, is that we don't want to become transaction.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to be focused just on the back end finances, but as hopefully solid business owners that want to provide a great place for our staff to work, we do care about revenue. We do care about continuing to grow so we can buy what we need to buy to make sure that they have what they need to take care of our guests properly, that we can pay properly, that we can come up with different benefits to make their job better and their life better in general, not working here. And so I think before we were just focused on the people side of it, and then it's easy to skew over and just focus on the transactional side of it and the revenue side of it. And so how do you bridge it? How do you keep your heart and also your head at the same time? Not only is a dreamer and dream crusher, people also say that there's the head and the heart. And she focuses more on that side of things, to where I get to focus more on the heart side of things, the vision aspect of it. Doesn't mean that she doesn't have heart. She definitely does. Doesn't mean that I can't think things through as well. But we definitely have our first natural tendency.
Yeah.
And so that's where we kind of go with that. So that's why, honestly, it's the best thing in the world to own a business with your spouse or your partner that you're, in and day out with. It's also some of the most difficult things you're going to do, but you get to bring the best of both worlds to the table, and then it plays out from there. And so I couldn't have a better partner in how we operate things, and specifically in situations like this.
Yeah. And I have such empathy for business owners that are doing it on their own, because we are able to bounce things off of one another and, vent to one another and all the different things. And I look at these entrepreneurs that are in it by themselves and they don't have that. And I'm like, I don't know how y'all do it. And people look at us and they say, I don't know how y'all do it, but we make it work. So.
25 years of marriage so far, it's been working okay.
Yeah. Yeah, relationships are hard, so being in business and doing it together is even harder. So props to you.
Thanks.
Well, so let's see. You've changed the program over time. I think this is maybe your 8th or 9th year, and you've changed what's included. The pricing has changed. Can you give us a sense of direction of what some of those changes were and
Sure.
what you learned that caused you to make those changes?
Yeah. So initially, some of the changes, we would talk to our club members and find out what they liked, what they didn't like. We would actually send a survey out at the end of every year to our current club members, asking them if they were planning on re-upping. If they were, what are the features that they like about the club? If they, were, but they had features they didn't like, they could voice those. And then for people that, dropped off, why'd you drop off? A lot of times it was, we're moving, or, hey, I, lost my job. And so I just didn't have the money at that time to do that, and I'm not coming in as often, so it doesn't make as much sense. So we would have those natural conversations, but some of the big ones that came up started in 2020, whenever we launched our app, which happened to be right in the right time whenever everything else shut down. We couldn't find a way to have members utilize their discounts through the app, through the company that we were using. There was not a good tracking way to do that. And so as more people became more app focused on their orders, which is a very interesting thing for us, because we are all about people and face-to-face connections. That's why we don't have any drive-thrus in our shops. We're all about people stopping where they're at and coming in and becoming part of our community. Even for those 2 to 5 minutes while they're with us, we believe it's important for people to kind of get out of their day and get into just a nice neutral setting. And so whenever people really were like, hey, we really want to use the app for our discount, that started our thought process on, okay, if we're going to keep doing this, we've got to transition to a different way of doing it. We've got to get a little more technical on that side of things. And so I'm a member of the Cinemark Movie Club. I'm sure every time you go to the Cinemark movie, you see the advertisement for it. You get you a free ticket once a month. They get you discounts. Every time you have a concession stand. I don't mean to be doing a plug for Cinemark Club. I like movies and I like using that app. And so every time I would go in once a month to go watch a movie, I'll pull that app out and I would use it. And so I'm like, why can't we have something like this? Why can't it be on the technical side of things, but we can still get to know people. We can still follow up with them. We can still have their marketing information, so we can connect back with them in a real way, not just selling data, which we don't do, not just, just doing push notifications, but actually connecting with them. And so that's how that conversation, and that's been about the past year and a half.
And that was something that we heard over and over again in our surveys. We wish we could use the app for our discounts, but the problem is that our discounts were so complicated. It wasn't just you get this discount. It was like this discount on this day, this discount on this day. It's exclusive to certain things. And so we also did just over time just looking at all of our systems in general on the retail side. We were trying to do some simplification logistically. Some of the stuff with the club membership logistically during November and December was something that we struggled with a lot. And we would always try these new things and try these little micro changes to see if it made it better. And then we would get to the end of the year and be like, well, this worked, this didn't work. And so we would kind of continue to refine those logistical systems as it relates to like how our staff was getting those sales and different things like that, signing people up for club memberships. We just started looking overall like, okay, is this the most simple way? Like, we love the idea of a club. We love the idea of, gaining loyalty and being able to connect with these people. But logistically, it was starting to get a little bit overcomplicated, especially with the new technology that was coming in, and that we were here, people were utilizing that more often and they were wanting to be able to kind of marry both. And so we had to kind of take a step back and go, okay, let's look at everything and let's lay it all on the table, which is essentially what we did this year.
Yep. And our baristas are much more appreciative of it because their job is now easier in taking care of our guests. They still get to know them really well, but if they don't have to have 3 different things to think about, they can focus on the main things, which is connecting and serving great coffee.
Yeah.
Like that's really their job. And so we need to make sure as owners that we have the least amount of barriers for them to be able to do that. And if we're coming up with systems that overcomplicate their job, then we're not doing our job properly.
Yeah, I have many gift cards from over the years, and some of them do not work with like restaurant apps and things like that. Yep. It's quite frustrating to to have something of value and not be able to use it like you want. And yeah, it makes sense. So let's see what's changed now. So let's see, you've made a pretty substantial change to how the program works for 2025. This is the first year that you've made this change. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
We're 2 weeks in so far.
So we essentially, the changes over the years were mostly pricing changes and maybe the different type of merchandise that we offered up until this year. So we might have offered a growler, like a, half-gallon growler was part of their package one year. Maybe one year they, instead of getting a cash card, they got a pin. Like, we would change those things out periodically. The discount structure pretty much stayed the same from day one. We didn't really ever change that. And then the prices would increase, or mostly increase over the years. We kind of added a little bit more. But really this year, what we were looking for was a way that they could use their discounts on the app and a way that it could make it easier for our baristas, because essentially during the month of November and December, we always have this so it's already your very busy time at a coffee shop. November and December are the busiest months ever. And throw on top of that, also you've got to sign up these club members because they can only do it during November and December for the next calendar year. And so it was slowing our line down essentially because we're having to take time to have them fill out this card. We tried a physical card for them to fill out. We tried doing it, through an iPad. We tried a QR code. We tried all different kinds of things to try to simplify it. But essentially, ultimately, we were like, it is slowing our line down in our busiest time. So we were considering that. We tried everything from like, take your items with you when you purchase it. Well, then they would come in thinking they were already members when really it didn't start till the next year. And so then we started doing deliveries. I mean, there was all kinds of different things logistically that we tried.
The spin on when we
delivering
with a 30-mile radius of Amarillo.
All of their items, because we were like, okay, we would come up against one roadblock that was like, this is really hard and confusing, either for our staff or the guests. And so we would try to fix it with something else. And then we would come against another roadblock. So this year we were like, we want to put everything on the table, club membership wise. Like, we know we want to have a club membership. We know that, we want to try to make it work through the app. So let's put everything else on the table, put everything on the chopping block essentially. And so that was what we did with our director team. So we kind of took a day and we just said, okay, this is our current club membership. These are the things we think we want to accomplish. How do we get from A to B without, making all of our customers frustrated, the ones that are used to this certain thing. So we did a series of things. We sent out, we kind of put together our thoughts on what we could do with this program and how we can move it to where it was more app-based. We also wanted it to be an opt-in, opt-out. Like, you don't have to buy it in November and December, because inevitably every March we'd have somebody go, I want to join the club. And we'd be like, well, you have to remember,
Yeah.
So we wanted make it more flexible. We wanted to make it where they could use the app. So we kind of put all of that on the table and we said, let's just figure it out. So then we came up as a director team with ideas of like, okay, we think this is what it can look like. And then our director of retail, who works with very closely with the app company, went to the app company and said, these are the things that we want to do. How do we make this happen? And they helped formulate it on the back end. Once we were, pretty confident that this could happen, we took that and we did another survey to our current club members. And we said, we are thinking about changing we had pretty much decided we wanted to move this direction, but we did want to hear their feedback and what things they, would have to say about it. And so it was very varied. We sent the survey to all current club members and we sent it to everybody that was like in our loyalty program that maybe wasn't a club member that like was coming in all the time and coming in often enough that maybe they would qualify to be. And it's interesting, the people that were not yet club members were like all about it. They were so excited that we were going to this new model. It really fit into what they would want and maybe why they hadn't joined the club before. And then our current club members were all over the place. Some of them loved it. Some of them were like, absolutely not. We want our Tumblr. We want our whatever. And so we just kind of had to weigh out. At the end of the day, what we always say as business owners and leaders in our community is, we have so many people and it's such a wide variety of customers. And so that was kind of where we talked with our team about, okay, here's the pros and cons list of making this change. It's a drastic change. It's a big change. And so we ultimately decided to do a little bit of a soft launch. So we're actually still in the soft launch phase where it's on our app. It's available. You can subscribe. If you get on our app, it'll say like subscribe and save and you can click there. But we have not advertised this new method yet outside of advertising to our current club members so they know that because they knew we were changing it. And then just our current loyalty program, like they know that this exists. And our baristas just word of mouth telling people. So we're getting ready to do a big marketing push for this new structure. The reason we had to kind of let our current club members know is because usually every October we'll do a re-up event where if they renew at that event, they got like a 10% discount on their membership. So we'd always done that. We've been doing that for probably 5 or 6 years. And so in October, our current club members were coming to us going, hey, when's this event? And we knew internally that we were reworking this program. And so essentially we were like, we got to get something out to them to let them know we're reworking it. So that was where the surveying kind of came in. So that's essentially what our process was to kind of get to this. And, at the end of the day, I think we probably did disappoint some people. I think a lot of people, it's just they don't fully understand the changes that we've made. And what I've recognized is when somebody comes and is like, I don't really like this. And I'll say, okay, great. What do you not like about it? And they'll start talking and it's usually a complete misunderstanding. It's like, oh no, you're misunderstanding this program. Here's actually how it works. And when I'm able to verbally or even physically show them in the app, like this is what happens and this is what you're able to do, then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm totally on board. And they'll sign up right there. So we're having to do a lot of like communicating, and our director of retail has been amazing with that, of just like really interacting with those guests that are showing some like, frustration or just like not understanding what the change was or how to sign up. And so he's been working really closely with those guests. So we've been trying to, in this kind of soft launch phase, really work out all of the kinks. That way, when we get ready to market it, all of that stuff is ready to go. And we ran into a really big kink in that we thought we were going to be able to have 2 tiers. We were going to have one that was a lower price that's just a discount base. And then we're going to have one that was like the movie club where it's like you get a free drink a week and you have, you pay a higher price. However, the app developers totally misunderstood what we were asking for and they could not do both. You can either get a free drink or a discount. You can't do both. Now they're trying right now and they're in the works of trying to develop something where that tier could work maybe later this year. But right now we're just like, we have one tier, $7.50 a month, opt in or out at any time, and you get 15% off of all of your purchases. And so that is kind of what we moved to. Whereas in the past, it was, yes, a higher discount, but it was only off of the club members' drinks. Well, now we don't have to, our staff doesn't have to go, well, which one of these drinks that you just ordered is yours? It totally, takes all of the questions out. It's like, are you a club member? They have a QR code in store that they show that shows that they're a club member. If they're on the app, it automatically, places their discount for them. And so it really has taken the weight off of our baristas. And when you have that many baristas working in your shop, inevitably somebody's going to not check an ID or not check that they're a club member. They're going to be giving away discounts or not giving away discounts. And so we just wanted to take the guesswork out of all of it. And so this model really aligns with our goals for that simplification. That was a really long answer for that question.
It's phenomenal. So this model, it's different. Let me make sure I understand. So there's a monthly fee that you pay. Is there an annual option, or is it just monthly?
It is now.
You can pay annually, and it's a 10% discount. So if you want to pay for the full 12 months, you're going to be a club member, you can pay it annually. The only thing caveat we kind of tell our club members is, like, if you decide in January, like you sign up in January and then, August you lube, you still, you're locked in for that year. You can opt out once your year is up, since you paid up front. And it's like, that's like with any app. So people are familiar and used to that model. But yes, there is an option to pay, which was one of the biggest questions we got. Like, I don't want to pay every month. I want to pay one lump sum and be done with it. And so we were able to implement that as well.
Gotcha. Okay. So, it sounds like there's a sense that some people valued the exclusivity of, you get in, you got it for the year, you get a special card, there's events maybe that are just for you, and maybe some of that is gone, or at least it's de-emphasized as a part of the program. How do you think about that? You've made this more accessible, is what it seems like, and it feels like that was very intentional. What's the trade-off, I guess, is what I'm asking. Is there something that you've lost as part of that trade-off?
With us only being 2 weeks into this year and us not really doing a big push for it yet, I don't know that we know really what the trade-off's going to be. I think we can anticipate what it is, which it is going to be people maybe not feeling as connected. But that's where we have to really trust our team. Like our hospitality, the way that we try to take care of our guests, the way that we train our baristas and everyone in the company on every level, is to make people feel valued no matter who they are, no matter how often they'd come in. And so if someone feels like they need that exclusivity to feel that, then that means we failed in our basic level of hospitality, but we're trying to reduce. And so while I'll be more than willing to hear people out all day long as a guest, if they do feel like I just felt more special because I had a card and so-and-so didn't. Okay, let's unpack that. Let's get in some counseling and figure out why you have something more so than someone else to feel special. Because we feel like by valuing everybody, genuinely valuing, seeing them as a person, that is what everyone desires. That is the deepest need of us as people, is to be seen as valuable. And so is there going to be a trade-off for some people that don't have a card or a tumbler to instantly be recognized as special? Sure. Is that something that we should be able to figure out and fix all the time? No, I don't think that's our role. Our role is to make sure we're consistent in our value back.
Yeah.
And so I think, to me, that's going to be the biggest one.
Well, and I think we had this conversation of, like, we already take care of our guests all the same way. So a club member may think that they're getting special treatment, but they're not, because we treat all of our guests the same way. And so, and our staff, that's why our staff was getting confused about who's a club member, who's not, because they treat all of them the same. And they're like, you come in all the time, you've got to be a club member. Well, they might not actually be a club member. You know what I'm saying? So we wanted to take that out of it. And so for us, we're like, our guests are still going to get treated the exact same. And now we're going to open up this community where, because a lot of what we would hear about the events in particular is like, well, it's on a night that I can, or it's always on this day or that day. Well, now we're just going to do community events throughout the year that everyone's invited to. And if you can make it, great. And if you can't, you don't. But it's more approachable, I think, and flexible for everybody to join. And so I think in our minds, we already are like, our hospitality and the way that we care for our guests is the same no matter if they're a member or they're not a member. So for us, the the trade-off for them is like, if you're a member, you get a discount, and that's what's good for you. What's good for us is that hopefully you're coming in more often and bringing your friends, and introducing them to Palace and what we're doing. And so I think that's where we kind of hope that this program works, is we each benefit from it. It needs to be mutually beneficial, and we see that it is. We can see the value in it. We hope that they see that.
And another aspect too is that if we need to change and add a community event that's just for people that are members of our loyalty program, we can do that on the fly and say, hey, this July, we're going to be out at this community event, July 4th +1. And if you come up and you bring your club membership, you're going to get a free drink on us at this event. So we can always add to it. That's the freedom that we get to have in this, is that we're creating the baseline for it. And then we can build on top of this foundation and do things. We're like she said, we're not scared to take risks. She's become more that way. We've opened up more shops than we currently operate. We've shut down 3 shops over the 13 and a half years that we've had Palace. And so we're always willing to try new things. And so this is just another one of those new things that we feel like we've thought through the logistics as best we can. And so now let's try it, see what happens, and then into it and see what works and what doesn't.
And it is interesting that with the annual framework, there was, you knew the ceiling of what you could offer based on what that revenue cap was. Whereas now, so people can join throughout the year, you have more opportunities to bring people in, and you can maybe have some extra flexibility. So I definitely see the advantage of that.
Yeah. And there's something too. We get a lot of travelers being in Amarillo. Obviously we have I-40 that drops people right on our front doorstep at our Whifflin location. Now with I-27, getting expanded, and that's going to be a big corridor for us too. We're going to have a lot of people going through King that are going to do the same thing. So how does a club membership work for someone that doesn't live here? Well, we're extending that same discount to our online community too, to where people can use a discount code that they get when they get onboarded, that they can go online and use that discount code that's just for them. And so then we could build up a relationship through our online store, which we're redesigning. We're hopefully launching in February, because we also understand that while technology is important and it's a way for us to reach more people, if we don't have the heart and the connection of someone actually typing specific messages or caring for our online guests as well, then that's still not Palace. And that's just an online store that sells Palace. So that's the next big step, is trying to have an online community where we actually can have discussions about our coffee, discussions about, just how we do things. Because when they stop in our shop, they feel hospitality. So I want them to, every time that they brew a cup of our coffee at home, to think back on the hospitality, and also have a connection point that if they're like, hey, I just got in this new job at Rosita from Bolivia from you guys. You got any brewing recommendations for us? I want them to be able to instantly get on something and say, hey, Patrick, can you help me out with this coffee? I know you guys picked it out for a reason. I'm sensing this when I do that. And then I could get a chance to talk to him, or our coffee team gets a chance to talk to him on that. So that's kind of how we're looking to expand. So again, this is our foundation, and then we're going to keep growing from there.
So let's talk about tools and the tech used to run the program. So is this all captured and contained within your app, or do you use some other outside tools that help you run this?
It is 100% through our app.
This year, it's 100% through our app, which we are so thankful for. In previous years, I've had a spreadsheet. We've had it in Square. It's been a little bit all over the place, but because the app works with Square, we're able to see it in both places. But essentially, all of the framework and everything that we have for it is done through our app, which we use. Per Diem is the company that we go through for our app. We switched over to them beginning of last year, and have really enjoyed just their platform and how it's really worked well for us.
They've been super responsive. Their app is pretty, and obviously it's a skin that, they pop on your own branding and stuff, but we have full functionality where we can change things as we need to. And that's where Cole, our director of retail, that's part of his role, is to make sure our app is staying as consistent and isn't buggy. And if it is, then we get right to Per Diem, and they're really Johnny on the spot and fixing things for us. So
yeah,
that's great. Yeah, cool. Okay. So, this approach that you've made a lot of changes, What advice would you give to somebody, they're out there, they are looking into subscriptions, recurring revenue, memberships of some kind. There's a lot of options. What would you say to them to steer them on a good path?
The first advice I give anybody when they're thinking anything about future growth is you've got to run that through your business plan model that you hopefully created whenever you started your business. And the most important aspect of that original business plan, it's not the nuts and bolts of it necessarily, it's the vision aspect of it, of who you are. Like, why did you get into this? What drove you to want to be a part of this community? What drove you to want to start this kind of business with this kind of product? You have to run everything back through that. And so for us, the reason we're switching to this is because, is there a revenue add for us to where we potentially can make more money? 100%. So how do we keep the heartbeat of Palace in that? How do we make sure we don't lose ourselves? That's always the danger of getting too tech heavy, moving in a direction that, you could not have to think as much because this is doing all the thinking for you. We can't lose the human aspect of it. And so that's the thing that is important to us. They've got to figure out what's important to them. If the nuts and bolts of it were why they got into it, if it was a revenue-based game and they wanted to do that, then okay, then you've ran that through your generator, you've looked at it, you know it's going to work, then move forward until you hit a wall. And then if you hit that wall, figure out if you have the tools to cut a door through it and open it up, or you have a battering ram that you can knock it down, or a ladder you can climb over. And if you can't do those three, then you stop right there and you turn around and you try to find a different path through. That's what you got to do. But the vision of why you got into your business is the most important aspect of it. So that's not just technology based. That's everything. Anytime you want to make a change. When people ask us all the time, can y'all add a drive-through? Can y'all open up a shop that has a drive-through? Can y'all put a box store that's just a drive-through only? Go back to our core vision. Why do we do this? We did this for people. We did this for community space. We did this to bring a community together that might not typically interact in our city. We want to provide that environment where everyone feels comfortable. That way they can all see the value that they bring to our community. So that's our core statement. That's our core vision. So this has to line up with that, or else we wouldn't do a lot.
I think too, something that I've learned fumbling my way through all of this, but especially with this program, is kind of going back to the basics of what we're doing this year. Is, like Patrick said, we built a foundation that can be built upon. So starting simple, maybe you don't do all of the things at once. Maybe you don't do a discount and the this and the that and events and all of these things. Maybe you start with, it's cost this much a month to join, and this is your discount. And then you can grow it from there. Because what we did, and the mistake that I feel like we made, I mean, it worked out for us, but if I had it to do all over again, I probably would have started with more of a foundation and then each year added things, because then I think when we got to this year, it wouldn't have felt as like, oh, wow, you took all these things away. You can always add things. It's hard to take things away, especially from a guest perspective. Even if it's the best thing for your business, they don't care. They want what's best for them and what makes them feel good. And so it's way easier to add things to what you're currently doing and be the hero and make them feel like, oh man, they added this aspect to the program, versus being like, we're going to start here and do all these things and then dwindle it down. I would say start simple, figure out what it is you want and then build on it from there once you make sure the foundation and the nuts and bolts of the logistic part of it works.
So I was talking to somebody else who I found out was a friend of yours about something unrelated. And she told me, Alexandra Littlejohn said, you have to ask them two questions. And the first is,
okay, I'm ready.
What is the story of the name and the logo? It sounds like there's something there.
There is. That is great. So we've been looking to do a coffee company probably for about 18, 19 years. And it just never felt the right time for us with us having young kids and stuff. And so by the time we actually dusted the idea off the shelf, we had been to the expo. I think our first one was in Anaheim in 2009, the year Michael Phillips won.
That is right.
I think that's right. So we got to see the industry at large for what it was. And from, you're from Lubbock. So you know that back in 2009, mid 2000s, the coffee industry in this area, was some local stuff, but it definitely was more syrup and milk drinks. There wasn't latte art really happening around here. There wasn't specifically pour overs and talking about flavor notes. It was just more of the basic second wave coffee around here. And so we walk into Willy Wonka's world at the expo and see all this amazing tech, and we see these coffee competitions, and we're like, wait a second, there's a whole other side to the coffee industry that we didn't know existed. And this fits more with our personality, because this is about an experience. This is about creating things for people that then leads back into my heartbeat, which is creating community spaces. And then if we're going to do that, we want to serve an elevated product that we're stoked about, not pretentious about, but we're at least excited that we can share information about. And so then we started thinking about, okay, this is the style of shop we want to own. Can this work in Amarillo? We're Canyon, Texas, really Amarillo, because we're Amarillo kids. And so our thought was no. So we were looking at going to Tulsa, we were looking at going to Austin, or we were looking at going to DFW. But none of those felt right. We didn't feel like we wanted to move, because this is our home. Like this, at that point, felt like home for us, our long-term home. I mean, we're hometown kids. And so we started just thinking about other ideas. And so finally, I had the idea after visiting a really cool coffee shop in Louisville called Quills, and they were just packed, and they had college kids in there all day long. So I got to know their manager that week I was there. And I was like, man, how are y'all busy, this busy all the time? He goes, oh, well, there's just 2 colleges, like right off the Baxter Avenue. And so we always have people coming to them. So I sat down and I called her that day and said, hey, listen, I don't think we need to look into a big market to create community and to create the style of coffee shop we want. I think we need to find a college town. And she was like, okay, cool. What college town are you thinking? I'm like, well, what if we didn't have to move?
And I was like, we don't have a college. Our 20 years old, we do in Canyon. And I was like, oh yeah, we do have a college in Canyon.
Yeah, Canyon.
I forgot.
Canyon is, for those that don't know, which a lot of people don't, Amarillo is the hub community of the Panhandle, north of Lubbock. And then we have Canyon, which is just south. It's called Canyon because it's right outside of Palo Canyon, the second biggest canyon in the nation. Everyone, if you get a chance to drive through, you definitely need to drive through Palo Canyon. It's beautiful. So we started looking in Canyon, and we found this little old building that used to be called the Palace Hotel. It was built in 1906, so it's on the Texas Historical Registry of Buildings. 1906 to 1912, it was the Mercantile of Canyon, and upstairs was the land office. In 1912, it turned into the Palace Hotel. And so that ran from 1912 to 1960. And that was the premier place to stay in the region. There was only, 12 rooms upstairs.
And the upstairs of that building currently is still the old Palace Hotel. It's not been touched. And so if you go up there, there's still the hotel rooms and the numbers on the,
whatever doors are left.
It's wild.
It's been around 2 years. There's not a lot up there anymore, but
before we took it, it was vacant for 6 years.
And so that
it was rough. It was in rough shape.
Yeah, as we went and found the building and we got the key to it, we were stepping over dead bats. The floors rolled, because I love old buildings. I think history matters. I think old communities need to find a way to recapture their history and claim it. You tell the true story about your history, but then also make it better.
Well, we walk in and Patrick says, it's perfect. And I was like, what? I don't see it. I don't see the vision.
Remember?
But
Dream crusher.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, I can make this work. The bones are beautiful. Like, this can be a story. This is where I want to create something.
Yeah. And that's where the name Palace came from.
So
Palace Hotel.
Yep. And so as far as the logo, our icon's a phoenix. And Phoenix is, bringing beauty from ashes, taking something from death to life. And so we felt like with the name Palace, and then it meaning such a big part of Canyon's history, we wanted to bring that back to life. And so that's why we decided Palace was a good name. The building, the Smith building, was threatened to be demolished if something didn't go in there soon, which would have been a travesty in my opinion. And so we were able to bring that back to life as well. And then you alluded to the Harry Potter stuff, and she mentioned as well,
we're Harry Potter.
We were Harry Potter nerds. Our family, were raised on it. And so Fox, the Phoenix is a iconic character from those books as well.
We wanted it to be regal, but Patrick was like, no lions. Lion is overdone.
And so I also thought about other things that were on coat of arms to go along with Palace. And you would see the Firebird, when they were ugly. It's like, Ruger has a Firebird. There's a lot of companies out there that use the Firebird symbolism, but we wanted to make it a little bit like us. And so we had a friend who was a designer who created the icon for us. And so therefore we have a Phoenix. So Palace and Phoenix, that's how that story works together.
That's a great origin story for those. All right. The other thing that Alexandra told me I had to ask about was that you're both apparently theater geeks is the language she used. I'm not sure what that means, but do you have a favorite Broadway show or some other show that you've seen or participated in even? I don't know.
I mean, the big story the biggest source. So we're going back for our Christmas. We buy each other a trip to New York. So
We do love New York. We do love theater. We're very involved in our local community theater. Picking one show is really hard.
it's not.
But are you going to tell the Hamilton story?
I'll let you tell it.
Hamilton, huge musical. The year that it won the Tony for Best Musical, we were there before the Tony Awards, and we happened to be there on a random Wednesday. I was like, I'm going to enter the lottery for Hamilton. And he was like, okay, we're never going to win that. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try.
We don't have Hamilton money to spend in $500.
Yeah, the tickets were very expensive. So I entered the lottery on both of our emails, and we were getting ready to leave the hotel. And I was like, oh, we got to check to see if we won the lottery. And he was like, okay. And I pull out my phone, and he pulls out his phone. And at the same time, we're like, we won. He had all of his email address. I had one on my email address. So we actually won 4 tickets.
Wow.
Crazy. And I think what happened was it was usually on Wednesdays in New York, it was what they called ham for ham. And they only did the lottery in person. Well, all the locals didn't realize they weren't having a ham for ham that day. We didn't know. We just were entering the lottery. So we won, and we got to sit front row center, $10 tickets, original cash.
Wow.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
So that's probably like my favorite theater experience, because it was just like, I cannot believe we're getting to see this. And then they won the Tony, a few months later. So we kind of got in when it was like really exploding, and we were able to see it for $10, like on the front row. I mean, it was insane. Favorite theater experience, I would say. And honestly, probably my favorite musical. I have every word memorized. Every single one.
What's your cleaning playlist?
It's my cleaning playlist. Yeah.
No. It's tough. Like, as far as like Broadway musicals go, I'm not the musical person. I do plays. I like to act and I do plays and the heavy stuff. To Kill a Mockingbird, we got to go see that with our boys whenever our oldest graduated high school. We waited until 2021 to go, and we got to go see a bunch of great things. That being able to experience theater with your family is important. Our kids grew up in theater doing plays and shows. And so it was really important, I think, for our family to be able to do that together as a group.
Yeah.
And we saw the big musicals that year too, Moulin Rouge, all that kind of stuff that, have been around for a long time. But being a play person, I wanted to go see an amazing play. And Jeff Daniels as Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird, and the staging of it was unbelievable. So it might change. We took this trip because The Outsiders is playing, and The Outsiders is such a paramount piece for people in our region. I mean, it was written in Tulsa by a 16-year-old woman, a girl at the time. And so to take that as such an important story for my childhood, I think our childhood, and to be able to go see that on Broadway after it won a Tony, I think that's going to be probably another important one for it.
Yeah, we are definitely theater nerds, in case you couldn't tell by how excited we just got to tell you those stories.
Yeah, we could talk for a long time about that side of things too, saying.
I'm a theater, the magic of theater is mostly lost on me. And my wife always gives me a dirty look whenever I remind her that I got to see Wicked in 2006 on a school trip. And I was, half asleep. I was not excited. It was not nearly as cool as seeing the Empire State Building. And I just remember the show ending and just thinking to myself, wait a second, can plays be good? And I was shocked that it was like so amazing. And it was sadly totally lost on me as a sixth grader.
A lot of people feel that way though. So ELJ has exposed us in the copy world. Found I'm a nerd.
I'm going to give one reason why I think theater is so important. And it's because I think it is a direct kind of one-for-one parallel to life in general. When you're in a play or you go to a show, you get that experience at that one time. It's never going to be done the exact same way ever again. Just like life, every conversation you have, every guest we take care about off our bar, you have that one moment that actually makes it real. That if you say something dumb, own it and lean into the awkwardness that might make. If you have a chance to make someone's day, do that. Find a way to encourage people. But there's a one-for-one parallel to theater, to where that audience is the only audience that's going to see that performance from that person in that time frame. To where movies and TV, you go back and revisit over and over and over and see the exact same thing again. That's why I think live theater is important. That's why I think it's a good part of Canada.
Spokesperson for theater. That really good.
Thanks.
Well, okay, Krystal, Patrick, this has been a really fun conversation. I'm very grateful for your openness to talk about these things and to help others out there who are in a similar situation, looking for inspiration and looking for ways to make their businesses more resilient. So thank you so much for joining us.
We loved it. And feel free, if they want to reach out to us and ask any questions, you could share our email address and they can reach out to us. So
absolutely. Where should people go? Is that at palacecoffee.com?
It's actually .co, that little M.
.co.
Somebody keeps on it. I think the last time we checked, it was about $25,000 to buy it. We're like, we're good without an M. It's fine.
Yeah.
Palacecoffee.co.
Yeah. So Patrick at palacecoffee.co is my email address. They also can reach out through our socials, through obviously Instagram. That's pretty much our main social. TikTok might be going away, so don't do that. Instant message us or reach out through email.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you, Garrett.